you know, as you were going through this journey, and I know the film covers this, uh, what were some of the most unexpected things you uncovered through this? I'm sure there was a lot, but what made it to the top? Like, wow, I had no idea that this was also true.
That number one, the Indians get heart disease with a normal BMI. So we are typically not heavy or obese, but we get diabetes 10 years earlier than our counterparts everywhere else. I do know that the American Diabetes Association has now cut down the BMI to 23 for Asians and not 25. But even at 23 BMI, like me and you, we did get heart disease. So BMI is really not a marker anymore. Waist circumference is more of a marker. So that's something we really learned as a new thing, which we were not aware of. And then obviously the whole concept of now with millet versus rice and the inflammatory diet, which is again a new concept in the last 4 years, that diet which carries more inflammation causes more heart disease. So heart disease is never thought to be inflammatory disease, but now it is. Those were two things I learned.
Yeah, and from my perspective, it was fascinating to me. The more time I spent with experts, the more I kept going back to basics, meaning it's pretty basic stuff. The surprises, and I wouldn't even call them surprises, were just the extent and the severity of heart disease in Asian Indians in general at very young ages, 10 years younger than our American counterparts and so on. So that was a surprise. But then as I kept going around, like Renu said, this whole concept of inflammatory foods came as something that was a whole new world to me. And I'm not one to tell people, hey, do this in diet, a single thing will change your life. I'm not one of those. I always tell people you've got to balance, you've got to incorporate different things. The point I'm trying to make is the whole concept, which one of the folks there has actually written a book on, it's called The Indian Adaptation of the Mediterranean Diet, which I thought was fascinating. So those were a few things that came out that stood out for us as going, wow. And to really make a long story short, and then this is not a spoiler alert when I say this, toward the end of the film, one of the things we talk about is that really the story, the unlocking of all of this is one thing, which is a simple life.